Good afternoon. It is 4 o'clock, so we will begin the board meeting. Brittany, could you do roll call?
We'll start with Linda Bove.
Present.
Brittany Buchanan, I am present. Colette Chapman.
Present.
Lynn Davison.
Present.
Michael Gordon.
Present.
Sue K. Kneifel.
Present.
Katie Cinco.
Present.
New board member Earl Terry.
Thank you. I think we're going to skip over 1.02, the introduction of the new board member. As he's not here today, we will table that until the next board meeting. 1.03, call to the public for agendized items.
We have one agenda item from Belinda Carroll.
I don't need the microphone. Good afternoon, Board, Superintendent Annette Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Shana, and Assistant Superintendent Oren, stakeholders, and members of the ASDB community. A year ago, I spoke in front of the Board on May 11th, and our expressions of concern still hold to this day. I am here on behalf of PDSD as a staff member to speak for those who could not be here or who are not confident to speak or because of fear of retaliation from the agency, administration, or their colleagues. I would like to talk about agenda item 6.20. That's employment contract for PDSD principal Jill Voigt. We are asking you to rescind her contract and reevaluate your offer. As employees under Jill Voigt's supervision, we have zero confidence under her leadership for PDSD. We understand that this position is very stressful, that she took over, and there were multiple tasks that needed to be handled. We were told, please give her some grace, and we have. We stood by her, and we tried to support her. However, this year, even with a strong leadership team behind her, she continues to spiral and struggles to lead this campus. Multiple emails, discussions, and conversations have been had. Conversations were made aware to Assistant Superintendent Oren. Our top 3 concerns are as follows. There's a lack of vision and direction of where PDSD should be going this year. At the beginning of the year, everything was in limbo due to her disorganization, her impulse decision-making, or procrastinating on tasks that needed to be completed promptly. This impacts all of us on multiple levels. Secondly, no clear transparency or communication via email, conversations, and discussions with things that have been brought up. People don't know what's going on and have been left in the lurch. When we have conversations, she makes promises that can't be kept or that she can't follow through with. Often, we have to prompt her repeatedly for answers to questions or concerns, and it often ends up with being patronized. We are often deferred to Assistant Principal Sabra Taylor or Assistant Principal Flint Fears as our go-to persons throughout the year. They are also overwhelmed with different tasks that have been delegated to them. Third, extensive micromanagement. She has no trust in her administration support team, her leadership, teacher leaders, and the staff who work at PDSD for many years to do their job to the best of their ability. It reflects on her capabilities to work with us and her leadership. She has taken on so much responsibility, which could easily be delegated if she would trust her staff, whether it's a school ride fundraiser, shopping for PBIS snacks, or sending out Parent Square announcements. Assistant Superintendent Oren has met with many of us. You are aware of our concerns. We know you've heard us, but yet we don't have an answer on how to manage this turmoil, and it impacts us. We need to feel confident and feel secure in order for us to do our jobs with your supports so that we can support our students and their education. To wrap things up, Superintendent Reichman has promised us more town halls, more collaboration, more discussions about the future of PDSD and ASDB. And there hasn't been an opportunity to do so this year before today. We ask that before you offer her contract, take the time to sit down with us and truly hear us. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 1.04, Superintendent's Report, Superintendent Reichman.
Good afternoon, President Kneifel, members of the board, Interim Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and ASDB community. Welcome to our March 7th board meeting. I'm very happy to see you all here tonight. Earlier today, we had some rain. I was happy to see that. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Today, I'm going to start with a quote. The quote is from a man named Archimedes. A long time ago, he was a Greek engineer who discovered the principle of using levers. And he said, "Give me a place to stand, and I can move the world." Think about that. If we have a place to stand, that place has to be solid. It has to be strong and stable with a strong foundation. If we are standing on a firm foundation, we can interact with the world, and we can, in fact, change it. That leads me to the point of strong organizational culture. One quality that we often overlook is stability. We have to have stability in order to have a strong organizational culture. When we sense stability, we are able to predict outcomes. We know what could happen. We have continuity. We know what's coming next. We have consistency. We have security, a sense of security. Stability and security come together and work in harmony, but we cannot have one without the other. We have to have both stability and security. When we desire an organization that is focused on growth and planning for the future, we have to have stability first. What happens then if we have an organization that is not stable? Obviously, we don't trust the organization. We have feelings of anxiety, of unrest, of ambiguity, confusion, and we don't know what is going on. That anxiety and confusion cause stress. Stress causes distress. That distress leads to burnout. And when people are burnt out, what happens next? We quit our jobs. We look for other opportunities. We look for organizations that have lower turnover. We have higher turnover. We at ASDB have a responsibility to try to keep our organization as stable as we can. We do have some components within our organization that have a firm foundation. For example, we have established core values and beliefs. We have a clear mission that talks about excellence in innovation and educational support for our students who are deaf, blind, and deafblind. And that mission talks about excellence and innovation with our leadership. excellent innovation in our collaborations with school districts, with parents, with community members, and excellence in innovation with our partners, other state agencies. We also have operating principles, ACT, accountability, collaboration, and transparency. That is how we behave and interact with each other. And you provided us with a strategic plan that gives us a clear direction for the future. All of that is included in a stable foundation. But the other part is strong leadership. You just heard public input regarding the importance of leadership. Listening to what the public commenter just said was very interesting because we are talking about good, stable leaders. What does that look like? Good leaders model positive behavior. Others can look at that behavior and copy that behavior. Good leaders provide clear expectations. Employees under those leaders know what they're supposed to do. Good leaders focus both on stability and growth. Good leaders focus on planning for the future, always thinking about tomorrow and what needs to be done to prepare for the future. So we, leadership and members of the board, have a responsibility to help the agency maintain stability. And as I said, you have done a lot of that. You've provided us with a clear vision for the future, with a strategic plan, and you've selected and given us policies for us to follow. You've selected and hired the superintendent to lead the agency. You evaluate the superintendent's performance on an annual basis. That is your responsibility. My responsibility as superintendent is to clearly articulate your vision to the community, to make sure that our operations align with the principles that you have approved, and to work with our two assistant superintendents in the selection and hiring and retention of good leaders here at ASDB. How do you know that the three of us have selected and hired and are retaining good leaders? You read your board reports. There is extensive information that details their work, the different projects that the leaders and staff are doing, the efforts that they're putting into preparing for the future. It is all outlined for you in our reports. I read our board reports as well, and some of the information I learned for the first time through those reports. A lot of work is going on across the agency, and it would not happen without our leaders. I'm not going to go through everything in detail, but I do want to give you 4 examples of projects that we are doing to prepare for the future. One is we are working on the re-accreditation process with Cognia, which is very important for the agency. The second is on both campuses, both Phoenix and Tucson campuses, we are implementing PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. Both campuses are implementing PBIS, and if you read the board reports, Principal Voigt talks about PBIS work that is being done here on the Phoenix campus. The third example, as you heard at the last board meeting, is to do with our work with Arizona Department of Education to help us implement our own educator preparation program. Because as we all know, we are not going to be able to recruit qualified teachers to meet our needs. We have to grow our own. And 4th is the Master Facilities Plan. You've been hearing about the plan for both campuses, and we are preparing for the future and trying to figure out how to get the correct facilities that will meet the needs of our students. Okay, back to you as a board. I'm going to give you a 4th responsibility. When the 3 of us look at contracts for our leaders,
Goodbye.
the 3 of us do our evaluations of their work. That's our job. We are responsible for evaluating their work as leaders at ASDB. The 2 assistant superintendents recommend to me who we should offer contracts for the following year. My job then is to let you as board members know who we would like to offer contracts to and whose contracts we would like to renew for our leadership team. I believe that your responsibility is to support our recommendations. I want to talk about 2 projects that we're currently working on. A little bit of an update. We are continuing the search for an assistant superintendent. As you know, that role is incredibly critical to the success of the agency and to move the agency forward into the future. We currently have 21 applicants for the position. Our collaborations with ANEVI have been successful and are ongoing. We plan to close the position posted for assistant superintendent on March 18th. That week, ANEVI will schedule meetings with the interview panel. We will give them an orientation to their responsibilities as members of that panel as they interview each applicant. The last week of March, which is March 25th through the 29th, we will schedule interviews for all of the qualified candidates. At the end of that process, the interview panelists will select 3 finalists, and they will pass those finalists on to me. During the month of April, I will work with an EB to figure out a plan and schedule a second round of interviews for those 3 finalists. At the May 9th board meeting, hopefully, I will have a candidate to present to you as the board for your approval. Another thing that's happening is our master facilities plan is moving forward, and we are nearing completion. We are ready for community input. We have 2 open houses for the community to attend. The first open house will be on Tuesday, March 19th from 3 to 6 p.m. on the Tucson campus. That open house will focus on the proposed plans for Tucson campus. The second open house will be on Phoenix campus, and that one is March 22nd, also from 3 to 6 p.m. That open house will focus on the plans for the Phoenix campus. We are hoping to have the community come and take a look at our drawings, pictures, and ideas, and we would like to get their input. And then we will finalize the master facilities plan from there, hopefully during the summer. And then the real work begins, looking for funding. That wraps up my report. President Kneifel and members of the board, I truly appreciate your commitment to ASDB, to our students, and to our work in providing the best education and supports to our students. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to information item 1.05, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction Report, Acting Assistant Superintendent Ketchup.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and the ASDB community. I know for most of our Phoenix employees, the only thing standing between them and spring break is this board meeting and work tomorrow, so I'm going to keep it pretty brief. This is the board meeting where contracts are discussed for leaders and teachers, and I'm very proud of those for who we are offering contracts. I want to thank them for their hard work this year and hope they accept their contracts and return to the ASDB team next year. I also hope that staff who do not require contracts also return, as I'm very proud of the work they've been doing. I'm proud of our blind programs who were able to provide the first Braille challenge in person this year since COVID. Watching how much that event meant to staff, families, and students was a good reminder as to why ASDB does exist. I'm proud of the Blindness 101 course that they've created for ASDB leaders, and I'm looking forward to participating in the second session in April. I'm also proud of our Braillists and their hard work ensuring that materials are accessible to our students throughout the state. I'm proud of our deaf programs and the hard work that they've been doing in getting the SLPI assessment up and running, as well as their hard work going into a second year of offering different types of deaf culture trainings for ASDB staff. I'm proud how that program supports all of our interpreters and how miraculously interpreters are always available, even while being ridiculously understaffed. I'm proud of our Deaf Mentor program and the important information and perspectives they provide to our staff and our families. I'm proud of our itinerant programs who continue to support districts across Arizona. And I'm very proud of our 3 itinerant directors who have been collaborating with each other to ensure that we're providing a consistent message and services across the state. I'm proud of all of our itinerant teachers who travel across the inner city traffic and our vast rural highways to provide services to deaf, hard of hearing, blind, and low vision students in literally every part of the state. I've been continuing to work with the directors and Albert from facilities to try to find the best way that we can identify a sweet spot for itinerant teacher caseloads while taking in factors like travel, so we can have an idea how to identify whose caseloads might be larger. I'm proud of our 2 day schools in Phoenix and Tucson, who pretty much this year have been working with all new leaders. And I'm proud how they continue to adjust to support families, students, and teachers, while also juggling ADE and federal requirements. Is there room for them to grow as leadership teams? Of course. I'm proud of the teaching staff on the campuses who continue to work with leaders, as well as me, to come up with solutions when problems arise. I appreciate their honest and often communication with me throughout the year, and I hope that that continues with the next person who gets to fill this seat. I'm proud of our SPED director and her team. In a very short time, they've put IEP meeting norms in place, and based on the meetings that I've been able to sit in, I'm very impressed on how they're being run. I'm proud how both nursing staffs on both campuses continue to address issues as they arise. And I'm very proud how our related service providers have been working with HR and business services to professionally and productively address their salary schedule. I'm proud of our CTE director who continues to dream big and has a vision to make the CTE program at ASDB be one of the best in the nation. I'm proud of the work of the ODD. They continue to build supports on our campuses, and I'm looking forward to next year having instructional coaches not just at PDSD, but also ASD and ASB. The ODD is also responsible for making sure that all of our state-required testing is completed appropriately and legally, and they also track all of our PD. A lot happens within that group. Finally, I'm proud of the work of our ELP program and how vast of a program that truly is that Dr. Benedict oversees. This year, I have not had much time to spend with our 0 to 3 folks, but I know that their work's not easy, and I'm proud of their continued efforts. This year I have gotten to know the PDSD preschool pretty well, and I'm very proud of that staff, how they support our students with their language development in both ASL and English, and I'm truly humbled by their dedication and hard work to those students. So that was a little longer than I anticipated, but this is the last. Actually, there's one more board meeting that I'll be keeping this seat warm, and I wanted to make sure to thank everybody for their work through this year. I hope that many do return next year so we can continue to build on creating something special. Thank you. If there's any questions about my report, please feel free to ask.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 1.06, Assistant Superintendent of Agency Operations and Support Services Report, Assistant Superintendent Cooper. Okay, we can hold for a second, sure. We have you back, Mike?
I'm here.
Okay. Now I can turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Acting Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, members of the board, and the ASDB community. The Operations and Support Services team is very busy supporting each of the educational programs with planning the needs for the end of the school year. We also continue to work on completing various other projects, which consist of monitoring the spend of our agency budget, finalizing the transition of our new student information system, creating an agency overview video and brochure, aligning student counts with staffing needs, and doing a deeper dive into the cost per student by disability categories. And as Superintendent Reichman mentioned, the completion of the development of a master facility plan continues to be underway. We continue to be faced with having unbudgeted expenses and financial challenges as pricing increases and shortages of qualified staff continue to drive up cost and strain our hiring efforts. Managing the limited resources is a significant challenge as we strive to provide the best possible educational experience for our students. This requires strategic planning and prioritization to ensure that our financial resources are utilized effectively. We try to make every effort to ensure that the budget is allocated to the various aspects of education, such as the instructional materials, professional development, and student support services. Having adequate qualified teachers and support staff to maintain an optimal student-teacher ratio and providing the necessary services to our students is another crucial aspect of the budget in our resource management. I think we are all aware that most schools across the country have hardly escaped the staffing hardships that have become so prevalent, shortages that predated the pandemic, but deepen as exhaustion, illness, and disillusionment about pay and other issues took a toll on the morale across the K-12 workforce, and other dynamics in the labor market made recruitment and retention even more difficult. It's more challenging for us because of the specialized services and instruction that are essential to the learning and success of our students specifically. I feel as if I continue to repeat myself these last couple of meetings, but needless to say, we're still working on filling staff vacancies by looking at various modalities to expand our recruitment and retention efforts, and as we continue to work on year 3 of restructuring the compensation and salary schedules. Included in today's Human Resources consent agenda items are various pay schedule changes and salary increase proposals for fiscal year 24-25. And as you all are aware, in prior years, staff were not informed of any compensation adjustments until July. We listened to those suggestions received, and our commitment this past year was to ensure that all staff would be informed prior to the summer break. Our first priority were the teachers, and that was because they are the only staff other than the leadership team that have contracts. So we made efforts to bring those proposed salary schedules to the board in January, since they received their contracts in March. I previously indicated in my prior reports that we plan to bring all other proposed salary schedule changes to the board in March. All of them are included in the consent agenda items today, except for one, which is the related services salary schedule. As most staff are aware, when compensation adjustments are made, they are not included in the decision-making process until they have been finalized. In this instance, with the related services staff, there were a number of questions that were being posed to us after the teaching salary schedule was approved in the January 11th board meeting. Our intent with the related services salary schedule was to align it with the teaching salary schedule, whereby the years of experience would be expanded from 20 to 25 years, and a step increase would be given. The proposed changes were shared with the related services staff in an information session meeting about 2 weeks ago. However, based on their collective feedback, it was suggested that we reevaluate the proposed changes and bring forth their salary schedule changes in the May 9th board meeting. We are working collaboratively with the staff and will be taking into consideration the feedback received, as well as reviewing salary survey information to determine our placement in the market for recruitment and retention of those staff. I do want to point out that most, if not almost all, of the related services staff have reached out directly to me, thanking the team and I for taking the time to listen to their feedback and how it has meant a great deal to them and demonstrates how working together can make a difference in the agency. One staff member in particular told me that in the 24 years she's been here, she's never been privy to any change in information of her pay prior to going to the board. And what our original intent with having the information session was to help address those questions and concerns, but also to communicate and be transparent with them. I also want to briefly address comments I've been made aware about our agency finances and how it relates specifically to how Medicaid reimbursements and the Prop 301 classroom site funds are being used. As most of you are aware, we have various funding sources, most of which are appropriated or either non-appropriated. When it comes specifically to the non-appropriated Medicaid reimbursements, those revenues are primarily used to offset some of our incurred costs for nursing and related services staff. And for a point of clarification, when I first started with the agency, I shared with the superintendent and the finance committee that the Medicaid reimbursements were not being used appropriately, and in fact, they were being overspent annually. It took me about 3 years with the team to monitor the activity being spent from the Medicaid reimbursements, and now we're able to use those funds for their intended purpose. As it pertains to the non-appropriated Prop 301 classroom site funds, they've traditionally in the past, per statute, been used for needs directly associated with the classroom, primarily for teachers, with providing them the opportunity to earn additional salary each school year, and their participation in professional development goals. If you recall, in 2021, Senate Bill 1130 was expanded to include student support services as an allowable expense, which has allowed our related services and other staff indirectly supporting the classroom to also be eligible to receive those stipends annually. When it comes to any agency staff member having any questions or concerns about the use of our various funding sources, I have stated on a number of occasions they are more than welcome to reach out directly to me or our Director of Business Services, and they're also welcome to attend our Finance Committee meetings. I think we're all aware that our fiscal position and finances have been more transparent these last few years and in the past. In conclusion, as the team and I juggle our various responsibilities to assist the educational programs and work through addressing their educational priorities and student outcomes, we make every effort to try to work smarter, not harder, by streamlining our processes, optimizing our resource allocation, increasing our accountability, and improving our collaboration and communication efforts by facilitating data-driven decision-making. And when I took this leadership role back in 2021, my mission and goal was to continue to improve the agency's organizational culture, but also to identify effective resource management strategies, which not only align with the agency's strategic plan. I am honored and grateful by the support each of my leaders and their teams continue to provide not only to me, but to the agencies to keep up the great work, team. And at this time, there are no other updates to provide. I'm open to answer any questions or respond to any questions that you may have.
So I want to be clear. We've pulled the related service increase. Originally, it was at 1%.
That is still included in today's consent agenda item to approve the step increase, which is a follow-up of the approval that was provided last year. We still want to move forward with honoring a step increase. Any changes to what that percentage will be proposed in May.
Okay. I do want to give my support to related services. I work with occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists. I share offices with them, and I know how valuable the work is that they do to provide access to our kids to the curriculum. And they're hard to find.
Yes.
And they're hard to retain. And we want to be able to keep them and provide them with whatever we can. So,
Other questions? I have a follow-up, Shana. You mentioned that you are doing market comparisons across. You've done that with the teachers, and now you're doing it with the other related staff positions. Just out of curiosity, where are we kind of falling with those?
Based on the initial analysis that the HR team has provided, we are within market. Not only have we been looking at schools within Arizona, but other schools for the deaf and the blind as it relates specifically to the related services staff.
Okay. And is that what you are looking at as far as making the proposal for the percent increase for May?
Yes, that is also taking into consideration, yes.
Okay, thank you. We are at 2.01, which is an action item, approval of the consent agenda consistent with board policy to include items 3.01, 3.02, 6.01, 6.02, 6.03, 6.04, 6.05, 6.06, 6.07, 6.08, 6.09, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12, 6.13, 6.14, 6.15, 6.16, 6.17, 6.18, 6.19, 6.20, 6.21, 6.22, 7.03, and 7.04.
I'll go ahead. I move that we approve all of those consent agenda items. I'm not going to repeat them.
That's fine. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
You do it, Lynn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any oppositions or abstentions? The consent agenda items pass. moving on to 4.01, information item, finance report, Kim Bittridge, Director.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, Acting Assistant Superintendent Tekchoff, members of the Board, and ASDB community. You have been provided our most recent board report that covers the financial data for January 2023 and 2024. Also included is the December financial statement for 2022 and 2023. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee meeting held last Thursday, February 29th, with Board President Kneifel and Board Member Gordon. Also in attendance were Superintendent Reichman and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. The total student count provided in the board report for February 1, 2024 is a summarized total based on the data provided by the directors and the principals. The new student information system data is still being validated. We hope to have the detailed information, including eligibility categories, on the student count similar to what has been provided in the past for the next board meeting. The current data shows 2,098 students as of February 1, 2024. This is compared to 2,119 students as of February 1, 2023. A total decrease of 21 students. Tucson campus has increased by 7 students, while PDSD has decreased by 22 students. Regional cooperative students have decreased by 10. The preschool has decreased by 28 students, while birth to 3 has increased by 32 students. As of February 1st, we had 504 full-time equivalents, which includes 8.5 full-time equivalents at the Foundation for Blind Children. At that time, we employed 717 staff. Only 154 are full-time 12-month staff. There are currently 173 vacancies across the agency that we are actively recruiting for. The highlights of the January 2024 financial board report show a total revenue of $28.4 million, $2.3 million lower than the January 2023 revenue of $30.7 million. The major difference is the decrease in receipts of the institutional voucher, the fee-for-service revenue, and the classroom site fund. All of these are tied to the student count. The fee-for-service billing is dependent on the data from the student information system. This is offset by an increase in the spend in the general fund. The budget fiscal year 2023 obligated expenditures of $37.3 million were $1.5 million less than budget fiscal year 2024 obligated expenditures of $38.9 million. The increase in professional and outside services includes temporary labor used at the Student Health Center in Tucson and the one-to-one nurses on the PDSD campus. The increase in food is from moving the expense to its own classification, originally reported under the professional and outside services. The transfers out in budget fiscal year 23 are for the kitchen equipment on both campuses. And if there are no questions, this concludes my report.
Any questions? I do have one follow-up. I think I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask again because my memory's short. So on the change in student count, do we know where these students have gone to? Are we tracking that? Why we've lost students?
I don't have an answer for that, but I can follow up with you after I talk to.
That's fine.
Staff.
That would work. Even if you have it for the next financial meeting, that would be great.
Great. I can
Thank
do
you.
that. Thank you.
Moving on to 7.01, information and discussion item, introduction and possible discussion of policies BE, BEDA, JLH, and IHBD. Maria Murphy, Director of Policy and Government Relations.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents, staff, and members of the ASDB community. Board President Kneifel, I do have one small adjustment. We are not reviewing IHBD today. We are actually reviewing policy LH. I believe that that's just a misprint in the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So you have before you the red line policies, and these were changes that were made in response to changes that the Arizona State Legislature placed into Arizona Revised Statute, with the exception of policy LH. Policy LH is simply a title change because our accrediting agency is no longer Advanced Ed, it is called Cognia. So we wanted to reflect that. And then policies BE and BEDA specifically are talking about board meetings. And what they're talking about is at an ASDB board meeting, we're required now to make sure that we can reasonably accommodate members of the public who would like to attend the meeting. And we are also required now to let members of the public know when they will have physical access to the building. Finally, policy, where did I go? Yes, policy JLH. We are just adding in that after a student is enrolled in a public school or a private school, ASDB is going to request directly from the previous school certified copies of the records within 10 days. I believe that we are already doing this, but we just put this into the policies to tighten it up. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
This is first read, correct?
Yes, ma'am, this is a first read.
Any questions? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, we will move on to 7.02, legislative update.
Okay, well, I am relieved to let you know that we are actually about at the midway point for the Arizona State Legislative session. I was asked to provide this update to you to let you know specifically about the ASDB continuation bills, both in the House and in the Senate. Unfortunately, they did not receive hearings in their respective committees, and so they are considered to be dead for this session. I am continuing to track over 150 bills, and they track from board actions, things like board meetings, public records, etc. Continuations, I'm tracking about 24 different continuation bills, which I wasn't paying particular attention to 2 years ago, but I'm paying very close attention to it now. I can tell you that with the continuation bills, for the most part, it appears that both of the chambers are moving towards cutting down continuations for state agencies. So we're seeing a lot of them go from 8 years down to 4 years. There's still a few outliers of 8 to 10 years, but again, those are big outliers. And interestingly enough, every time a continuation bill comes through, I can always count on bipartisan members of both the House and the Senate to speak up and say, well, what about ASDB? Why didn't you give ASDB an 8-year continuation last year? So we have some very vocal members from both parties who are continuing to advocate for ASDB and the continuation. We also have some human resource related bills, a few operations bills. Of course, I continue to track the education bills as well. Most of these education bills, the majority of them do not directly affect ASDB. However, they affect our partner districts. So we always want to make sure that we're tracking to see what's happening with our partner districts, and also for some of these bills that have grant opportunities attached to them, to see if possibly there might be an ability for ASDB to be able to get an amendment to allow us the opportunity to qualify for some of these grants. So I've actually been working with my counterpart at ADE regarding some of these grant programs, and even though I haven't been successful getting an amendment yet, I do have a commitment from ADE that they will continue to work with us in the interim to try to assist us. So I see you look like you're going to ask a question.
I have a question.
Yes,
ma'am. So I understand that the continuation bill died in committee. Also, the transportation bill as well. Are we looking at any way of doing some sort of amendment to get that back in front of a committee?
So
specifically the transportation.
Specifically the transportation bill. So what I can tell you, Madam President, is that there are still 69 what we call strike everything bills that are out there. And it is theoretically possible for us to approach a legislator to ask if we could use their strike everything bill to try to revive this appropriation bill. I will tell you that I don't hold out too much hope of getting that bill through, because it is an appropriations bill, and as we're starting to inch closer to May and June, all of the appropriation bills are going to stop moving, because that the leadership in the House, in the Senate, and the governor's office are going to start negotiating the budget in earnest. And my plan B is that I am going to be literally walking up and down the hallways in the Senate, in the House, knocking on the door, giving them our fact sheets, talking to them about the urgent need that we have for this funding, and how every year we go out without this additional funding, the problems compound on us. And what I'm going to be doing is asking every single legislator, please will you be a champion for us on this? Please will you put this on your priority budget list? And the leadership of the legislature, they do listen to their rank and file legislators, and if enough of them, if we can get a critical mass of people who are asking to include this funding, then there's a better chance that it'll make it into the final budget. We know that part of this funding is already included in the executive proposal, the executive budget proposal from the 9th floor, but ultimately that's kind of a starting negotiation, and the legislature is going to come back with their counteroffer.
All right. Thank you. That's all I needed. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.01, call to the public on non-agenda items.
We have 2 on non-agenda items. One was posted online. Do you have that right away? No. Okay. So then, and second, we have Libby. I don't want to butcher your last name. Is it Browse?
Correct. It is Browse. Hello, everyone, and thank you for your time today. My name is Libby Browse, and I'm a preschool teacher at PDSD, as well as the vice president of the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind Educators Association. As the ASDB community gets ready to enter the fourth quarter of the school year, some of us are also looking forward to the 2024-2025 school year. Contracts will be coming out, and teachers will be wondering and preparing for their future caseloads. Food service workers and transportation staff might be wondering about new initiatives or planning bus routes. Related service providers will be considering caseload sizes and hoping for positions to be filled. Interpreters are maybe thinking about the downtime they will have before things get really busy again. IT and the media teams might be planning new strategies for technology rollout and managing all of the behind-the-scenes work that make meetings like today accessible. Leadership, I am sure, is already planning professional development and ways to set up the next school year to be successful. As planning begins to happen in the ASDB community, the members of the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind Educators Association would like the board to consider what they might be involved in planning. We are requesting the board to set up another work study session to continue the discussion and consideration of creating our agency's own H policy, also known as Meet and Confer. Those in our community may not know that since the 70s, ASDB has had an education association or a union. We are an active body working to spread awareness in our community with all staff members. We are looking to grow our relationship with the board through establishing an H policy. And the way through this process is through continued open dialogue. We hope plans are being set to figure out how to take the next step in the decision process for the board to enter into a relationship with ASDB's union in order to continue developing plans for our community and implementing those plans that are already in action. After listening to the meeting today, those plans can include working with the Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind Educators Association to include staff on the assistant superintendent interview panel, gather feedback on the master facility plan, communicate with staff on the information and work that's done at all of these board meetings, or working with Maria Murphy and the Arizona Educators Association for monitoring bills in the Arizona legislature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. So the second non-agenda item we got was from a parent of a current student. First, Elizabeth Smith, are you here before I summarize your comment? Most of the comment is about parent involvement to support students and teachers, and how parents are not feeling slightly disconnected from involvement in classrooms.
Thank you. Moving on to 8.02, discussion item, agenda items for the next regular board meeting, which is scheduled for May 9th of 2024 in Phoenix. Okay, anything that would come up after the meeting, you can either share with myself or Superintendent Reichman. Do we have an April work study planned yet? Okay. Let us consider that. We might need to pick some dates and see if we can get something on the calendar. If no other items for the next agenda, I have 9.01 action item, adjournment.
That's my job. I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Thank you very much, all those in favor, and have a good evening, everybody. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned at 5:04 p.m.
This is a miracle.